When a saint presses two chapatis, one has blood pouring from it, whereas the second one has milk coming out of it. How and why? Today we'll learn in this Bodhkatha. So once upon a time, there lived a great saint who was not just the worshipper of God, but also someone who was very popular for his greatness and divine powers. So people from different villages came to him to seek blessings. And he very politely showed great deal of love and compassion towards his devotees. Now one fine day, a rich merchant from his area decided to invite him for the afternoon lunch on the next day. So arriving at his place, the merchant bowed down to him and very politely invited him to visit his home next afternoon. The saint agreed to it. Once the merchant left, after a few minutes, in came a poor peasant from the same area. Now initially the peasant was hesitant because he also had the same idea. He was also over here to invite Mahatma for the next afternoon lunch. And as he had limited resources, he was having second thoughts over his idea. Yet he went ahead and invited Mahatma. Initially he greeted Mahatma politely and then expressed his desire. Initially Mahatma was reluctant to accept the invitation because at the same time he couldn't be there in both the places, as even the Sahukar wanted him to visit his mansion next afternoon. However, he said yes to the farmer and agreed to visit his hut. On the next day, the merchant and the peasant both waited for Mahatma to visit their houses. But Mahatma chose and arrived at the peasant's hut. Naturally, the peasant was elated with joy on seeing the great saint visit his small yet beautiful hut. Gave him great deal of happiness and satisfaction. He served Mahatma with whatever food he had. Although limited, he and his wife had done the best to serve Mahatma the best food. After completing the meal, Mahatma left, giving his blessings to the peasant and his family. However, the scene in the merchant's house was completely opposite. The merchant was not just annoyed, but feeling humiliated. People in the village would wait for the merchant's invitation. They would feel proud to be a friend of merchant or to be in his mansion. However, the saint had rejected him. So with somewhat annoyance and bitterness, he decided to visit the saint and ask the reason for this rejection. He went to the saint and with folded hands, he complained, "Oh dear saint, I bow down to you. But whatever you have done doesn't suit a great human being like you. If you didn't wish to visit my luxurious mansion, why did you accept my proposal? I had kept great delicacies ready for you, the best anyone could offer you in this entire city, and yet you didn't arrive. It's not just wasting my food, but also it's like insulting a person like me who has great deal of respect in the society. Why did you do that? The saint replied, "O beloved merchant, why don't we visit your mansion and let me check the delicacies? And only after that, I would like to answer your question." The merchant is fine with that. So both of them make their way to merchant's house. It is here that the great saint tells the merchant that in the afternoon he could not arrive as he had accepted the invitation of a poor peasant who had also invited him for food at the same time. Now this makes merchant furious because the saint had given priority to a poor peasant over this rich and pompous businessman. Now all that he could do was ask the reason for that. He asked the saint, "O respected dear Mahatma, what was the reason for choosing stale food over my fresh delicacies? Please tell me, what was there in the food of the peasant that I couldn't give?" The Mahatma says, "Why not? Just hand over a chapati to me. Just hand over an Indian bread to me." Mahatma's orders are followed. So he picks up a chapati and presses it in his fist. And to the astonishment of the merchant, blood pours from the chapati. Seeing the blood drops fall on the floor make the merchant wonder what was the saint doing and what was wrong. Once the job of the chapati is done, Mahatma keeps it down, and from his bag the holy man removes another chapati which he had carried from the home of the peasant. And this time, within his fist, he presses this chapati. And once again, to the astonishment of the merchant, something pours down. But this time, it's the milk. The merchant was getting somewhat unclear idea of what was going on. But he desired an explanation, which Mahatma gave. Mahatma said, "O rich merchant, you are extremely rich, and there's no doubt about that. But the way you have earned the money is through all the wrong means. You have looted the people to make money. You have cheated the people. Many a times you did not pay your servants, your helpers, and even if you paid them the money, it was less. So basically, you sucked their blood. And that is why blood poured from the chapati that you offered. Your bread is a bloody one. Whereas the poor farmer, he worked day and night in the field, and whatever he has earned, although it's very less in comparison with you, but it is completely honest stuff. That is why when I press this chapati, milk poured down. So your wealth is made up of sins, whereas his wealth is full of virtues. So now you tell me, whose invitation I should have accepted? The pompous businessman understands and realizes his mistakes. He cries and apologizes to the saint, and from that day onwards, leaves all these corrupt practices, taking the oath to walk on the path of honesty, integrity, and compassion for others. So this reminds me of Shri Krishna, who rejects the proposal of Duryodhana to live in his grand palace, but goes to Mahatma Vidur to just enjoy simplest food. सबसों ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसों ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, दुर्योधन के मेवा त्यागे, साग विदुर घर खाई, सबसों ऊंची प्रेम सगाई. सत्य सनातन, जय सनातन, ज्ञान यज्ञ continues.